So today we'll be continuing to take a look at an alternate scenario of Hades Pro's Wicso. In the last episode we saw the conclusion of the coalition of the willing, and with this the conclusion of World War IV as a whole, with a lot of nations getting either super weak or some of them becoming super strong, and some of them even return from the previous episodes of Wicso. So let's waste no time and get straight into this video. First, we're gonna begin this video right here between Carolina and Brazil, and they will be both declaring war commonly on the Caribbean nation. Carolina does the first move as they move through the Bahamas archipelago, taking all these islands and capturing the entire archipelago, while Brazil targets these southern islands in here with Saint Lucia and Trinidad and Tobago, and they manage to take all these islands. After this, we'll have Carolina make a landing on the island of Cuba and start to swallow away this island from the Caribbean nation, but here the Caribbean nation will manage to set its defensive front lines, but Carolina will still make a landing on this island and take it. Then we're gonna have Brazil make a landing here in Puerto Rico, taking the entirety of the island. Then they make a pretty successful naval operation from here into Central America, taking the island of Jamaica, and now they are ready to encircle the island of Dominica. This is exactly what they do as they make a landing here on this eastern part of the island, and from there they make a push here into the west of the island, and now they will start to push back these island forces and take the entire island of Dominica. And then Carolina will sweep through the rest of the Caribbean nation and manage to swallow it all up. So let's see how the two nations partition the country. This peace treaty will be a pretty fair one, with both of the sides getting what they captured during the war. We will have Brazil kind of making a sphere of influence here in the south of the Caribbean, taking this little archipelago of islands, Puerto Rico, Dominica and Jamaica, and Carolina has taken the Bahamas and the island of Cuba. This is the first war that has been fought since the end of World War IV and the coalition of the willing, but it wasn't a very deadly war, so it doesn't really come with a lot of repercussions. But now we'll jump over to Quebec, in this area of what was once the colonies of Hibernia and the non-existent Galicia, and here we'll have the planning of the Union of Unitaria between all these five nations. With the recent victory of fascism in World War IV, now these nations feel a lot more threatened, so they feel like being united could help them in this new age and could help them preserve their independence. So between these five nations we'll have the formation of the Union of Unitaria, between the middle nation in there, this orange nation, the blue nation, Newfoundland, and finally we'll have the big Quebec nation join in here like this. And now the Union of Unitaria is complete and has now formed with its original members in this part of Canada. Now what does the fascist world think about this? Well, first of all we'll have Carolina being heavily threatened by this. They do not like this nation. Also the Europeans aren't too fond of their culture that they have brought here being basically erased. And as for the rest of the world, they feel like this could be their next opponent in a potential World War V. But the Union will spark some pretty interesting thinking throughout the rest of North America, especially through the former French colonies, including New York, including the Hudson and Great Lakes nation, and especially the Canadian and Greenland nations, which might be trying to join this union to prevent themselves being swallowed by the fascist bloc. Now going over here in South America, in the last episode during the peace treaty I talked about how the Argentinian nation was not able in this timeline to annex the Uruguayan parts, as they already took a lot of land from South Argentina and the Lime nation in here. And if they took that piece of land, they would have been in heavy risk of collapse and they would have suffered a lot of instability. But now that the war is over, about 5 to 10 years have passed since the war, so now they got their money and they have managed to assimilate all these territories. They have stabilized their nation, so now they are ready to get their claims, which they say they deserve. First, we'll have the Argentinian troops hop here into the southern part of the Uruguayan nation, taking more of these coastal parts, which is also where their capital would be located. They sweep across these parts, and from here the nation will fall pretty quickly, as it didn't really get enough support to, well, settle down their nation and ensure their stability and defense and all that stuff that they will need to be able to exist as a country through these times, so they will fall pretty quickly to Argentina. And then we see the Uruguayan nation being annexed by the Argentina nation in here, which now got basically all the land that they wished for from World War IV. But let's just say that they don't really have enough instability as maybe they would have needed to annex a new piece of territory. For now they are okay, but we'll check on them in later episodes. Now going over here into Africa, we'll have the radicalized Angolan and Lavender nations from World War IV throwing hands with each other due to the fact that the Angolan nation has some claims over these territories of the Lavender nations, and they are radicalized, but they are not in the Parallelogram Alliance. But it's pretty clear that the Parallelogram Alliance will give support for the Angolan nation. This war is pretty hard to be fought because none of these nations are particularly strong in any way. They have been basically destroyed after World War IV. They suffered immense casualties, especially the Lavender nations. They were basically winning, and then all of the sudden basically the fascist bloc rejuvenated with the fall of India and they got absolutely smacked around. But here we'll have an encirclement which will manage to cut off these troops from the Lavender nation, and then they will capture that the territories of that said nation. Also a spearhead will be made in here, hoping to meet across through here and take those territories, but this spearhead will be quickly stopped, and now the Lavender nation will manage to do some pushbacks. Not enough though, as now the Angolan nation will move across the coast. Again, it's kind of a new war strategy to take the nation's coast. From here they will make two spearheads, and from here they will rejuvenate this spearhead. This one will succeed, and then this will also succeed, taking these territories and then also encircling this entire division. From here we'll have this battalion in here going over and capturing this area, and from here we'll have multiple spearheads being made to make way more smaller encirclements, which these will start to slowly but surely fall over to the Angolan country. And after this we'll have the sweep of the rest of the Lavender nation, a nation that fought hard during World War IV, but after they lost it all. They lost all their power, and now they are annexed into Angola. And here, after the Angolan nation has annexed the Lavender team, they'll be joining the new Parallelogram Alliance. Also we'll see some more radicalization happen. Not radicalization, but some countries joining here in the Parallelogram Alliance, including the Yellow nation. And over here we'll have the Madagascar country also join the Parallelogram Alliance, so that they can like protect themselves and not get invaded. But now that we saw the Parallelogram Alliance expand in here through these radicalized nations, now we're gonna jump to the Trapezoid Alliance, which we saw lose World War IV, but their alliance is still here, but they are gonna do something interesting. Now if you see, I deleted the shape of the Triangle Economic Alliance, and that's because we'll have the merger between the Triangle Alliance and the Trapezoid Alliance, and they'll be forming a military economic alliance. Now the Trapezoid military alliance and the Triangle Economic Alliance will now be united under this blue trapezoid, and they will be forming a military economic alliance, basically being two in one, essentially being both a military alliance and an economic alliance. And now this is the strongest alliance in terms of what it offers for its members. So this is a nice victory for the democracies, which is strange in a world that's currently ruled by fascists. Now here in Europe we'll go over to the Russian warlord, which will make his first move after World War IV, and this will be the invasion of the North Russian nation. They'll hop across the border and quickly snag the capital of North Russia, and then proceed to move across their kind of more populated areas of their nation. This is gonna be pretty easily done, as the nation doesn't really have that many defensive forces or offensive forces in the first place. They do not really have that big of an army, so they will shoot up, meet here with their coastal axis in here, their frozen coastal axis, as they are not trading through here, as most of their ships are just frozen here during like the winter and even in the summer. It's not really a valuable area to invade or to like have in general, but the Russian warlord will go and take these lands, as it was still part of the old Russian Empire, and this is his current goal, to bring back that nation. So he'll sweep across these territories over here. He will meet up around here, and after taking these territories we'll have the surrender of North Russia. Pretty simple and pretty similar peace treaty to the actual timeline. We'll have the Russian Union take these territories out of North Russia, also taking their northern islands in here, and then we'll have the Siberian nation take these lands over here that would have created a huge amount of border war if Russia were to annex it, but they didn't, so it's fine, we don't have to roll around with those borders. And now Russia is starting to regain their empire, and if honestly they were to invade Siberia, they would mostly achieve their goals. Now we'll have to discuss about something interesting, and this is radicalization. The world is pretty radicalized at this point. Almost all of Africa is fascist, Europe is like 90% fascist, North America is half fascist, South America is fully fascist, full 100%, Oceania most of the same, about 90% of it, I mean only like 10% from the green Indonesian nation, and then it's Asia, which still has a couple democracies left, but we are now gonna change that, as now we are gonna have some new countries radicalizing. The North Afghanistan nation will radicalize, East Tibet will radicalize, Brown Mongolia will radicalize, Pink Mongolia will radicalize, the Seafoam Green will radicalize, South Japan will radicalize, Yugoslavia will radicalize, Thrace will radicalize, North Finland will radicalize, and finally we'll have Sweden radicalizing. Now all these countries are controlled by fascist regimes which have overthrown the democracies, and now these nations are under fascist control. Maybe some of them might be joining later or sooner into the Parallelogram Alliance and the World Fascist Order. Now going over here into the Oceanic Islands, more specifically here in Indonesia, we'll have a pretty interesting unification, basically in the same timeline as Ades's. Basically we'll have the Indonesian Union forming. It was supposed to form like Hibernia and Scotland during World War IV to like intervene and stop the fascists. If that happened, they might have been able to overthrow Red Australia, but now due to the fact that the war is over, now basically they have nothing to stop them from uniting, so this is what they will do. And we'll have the kind of Sumatra nation go ahead and unite over under Borneo, and now Borneo is a very big union of nations here in Oceania, and let's just say that Red Australia isn't very thrilled about this, as now there's a new nation that might be rivaling their power here in the continent. But let's just say that there might be some nations in here that Red Australia could think about. But for the final event of the video, we'll have some new nations join the Parallelogram Alliance. But before we get to the Parallelogram Alliance, I want to say that Carolina will pretty understandably so leave NATO, as they literally got some new allies in here with the fascist bloc. This is the full alliance map, and now we are gonna break down all of the new members. First of all, here in South America we have the entire fascist bloc with Argentina, Chile, Brazil and Peru joining. Also we are gonna have West Mexico and Carolina joining. In Europe we are gonna have Catalonia, the Italian Union, Crete, the Mesopotamian Empire and Russia. All they will be joining the alliance. And finally, for our last two members, we will have the Persian Empire joining the Parallelogram Alliance alongside Vietnam or Indochina, however you wanna call it. And this does it for the new members, and also this will do it for today's video. I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.